There are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction.
This is SPRH Podcast, where business experts help you to take massive action. With your hosts, corporate and keynote speakers Matt Ward and Dan Candell. Change your business, change your life, and start now.
Welcome to the SPRH Podcast. I'm Dan Candell here with Matt Ward and our special guest today. And hey, Matt, let the good times roll. That's what our guest will be sharing with us today, how we can leverage the good times to build a sustaining business through the tough times. Matt, have you ever had tough times?
No.
Oh, that's baloney.
Of course I have.
You call me all the time. We call each other all the time, explain our tough times. And our guest today is going to help us through community and creating followers. You can create a more referral-based business. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our wonderful guest today, Dr. Richard Nongard. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much. It is great to be here and to hopefully share a couple of pearls of wisdom with your wonderful audience.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Doctor. As you know, we help small business owners take massive action. Can you share with our listening audience what massive action you have taken and what the results of that massive action were?
So in 1994, I was working as a therapist, the administrator of an evening substance abuse treatment program at a hospital. And so I went into the CEO's office. She was a very nice lady, open door policy. And I said to her, Michelle, I would like to be the CEO of the hospital. How do I do that? And she said, oh my gosh, Richard, you're fantastic. She said, maybe if you go back and get an MBA and I can move you into a supervisory position and I'd love to mentor you. And within 20 or 25 years, you will have your own hospital and be the CEO. I was 29 at that time. I did the math, it basically worked out to be 54. And so I went home. And I didn't really sleep very well that night. And so the next morning, I handed her my keys and told her that I was quitting. And she said, well, what do you mean you're quitting? I thought you wanted to be the CEO. I said, I am. I'm the CEO of Peachtree Professional Education. And she said, what is that? I said, I'm not sure yet, but but I'm out of here. And so I started my company in 1994 with no customers and no product. And that company that provides training to mental health professionals still is the core business that I do and has become, over the years, probably one of the largest providers of CEUs throughout the country for mental health professionals of all levels.
So you ditched the education and you started teaching instead of getting an education.
Well, I already had my master's degree at the time, and I did go on to get my doctorate in transformational leadership and cross-cultural engagement. So I remained a perpetual student, but I did not take the recommended route. You're correct.
Is this something that you recommend business owners do, is continue education? Because sometimes taking classes can become addicting and can sometimes become a distraction to people.
I see a lot of people who won't take action until they learn everything first. And I think the way to achieve success is to start engaging in action and learn from our mistakes. They say that good judgment comes from experience and experience comes from bad judgment. So I think it's important to continue our education, but I think it's equally important to start taking risks as soon as the entrepreneurial bug gets us.
Matt, what do you say? Done is better than perfect?
Yeah. I'm not the only one in this world that said that, but yeah, I subscribe to that policy. I mean, certain things need to be perfect, like a surgery. But, if you're taking a kidney out, it probably should be as close to perfect as theoretically possible. But I also probably think that maybe they subscribe to that policy too. Let's get that kidney out before we don't want to wait, right? They're taking action. So here's what I've seen in the last 12 to 18 months, Dan, specifically in my business, is that action induces more action. Right. And so I make small little actions that build to massive actions over time. So I build a keynote by trying out a new little bit that's 1 to 2 minutes in a talk. Right. And the audience has no idea it's there. But as I play with that and see how that's going to work, then I can go, oh, wait, that might come out and go into its own thing over here. And you might end up, when I wrote my book, I put a chapter in my book that was actually from my talk, my keynote, that originally, I think we might have talked about it here first or on another podcast I was a guest on. So things iterate over time and they grow over time. And I think that's the learning process that, Richard's talking about, is that, as you, I don't know if the right word is fail, but as you try new things, you see what works and what doesn't work. And that builds on new and innovative ideas.
It's kind of retrospective learning sometimes to go back and fill in the missing pieces. I think that's perfectly acceptable. And whether that's formal education, like a degree, or whether that's continuing education, like courses or conventions or seminars, or even just learning from books. In the world of therapy, I've always been pretty good at business, and I've been doing business coaching and business consulting and business training for 25 years in a number of different industries, but certainly in the mental health community. And the reason why is I built my first private practice as a therapist, spent all the money I had to open up the doors, and the phone never rang. That's when I realized I was a really good therapist, but I knew nothing about business. So I made a policy, and that is for every therapy book I would buy, I would also buy a book on business. And my one-to-one policy has guided me, because it's a lot easier for me to help people at the end of the month if I can pay my car payment, if I can pay my mortgage, I don't have to worry about my electricity being turned off. And so being a successful business person has helped me to be a successful therapist.
Part of being a successful business person, I think, and getting followers is building a community.
Absolutely.
What are some of the, because I'm a member of your community, I get your emails all the time, and I've actually bought many of your training products. And to give our listeners an insight, I'm actually going to take one of Richard's classes in Las Vegas. I leave tomorrow morning at 3:00 in the morning. How do you go about building a community? Like, what are some steps that business owners need to know that need to fall into place to start building a community for themselves?
I love to talk about the three things that are the essential foundations of success in business: community, culture, and identity. What community means is that people I see a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to build a beautiful and perfect website, right? And they spend hours trying to pick the perfect font or the perfect color scheme. Again, kind of like what Matt said, done is better than not done. And the reality is fonts don't buy products. People buy products. We sell not by building a beautiful website, but by engaging in community. So many people are trying to figure out, they spend hours online, days online, weeks online, taking courses online, trying to figure out SEO. The reality is, in today's world, it's not the 1990s any longer or the early 2000s. You have to drive traffic to your website. Google's not going to bring it to you. And the way we do that is by engaging in community. Just this past week, I've been to 3 different meetup groups in my community, real world interactions with real world people. I tell therapists all the time, get out there and knock on the doors of your neighbors in your office building and ask them, what is it that you do? I'm your neighbor, and I'd love to know about your business. The law of reciprocity kicks in. They ask, what do? You can share with them your business. Now you have a sense of community. And that is essential, I think. Some people might call it old world marketing strategies, but the reality is, whether you're a real estate person, whether you're a pizza shop owner, whether you're a psychotherapist, whether you're an executive in a C-suite company, Fortune 500 company, community is absolutely essential. Apple is $1 trillion company, and nobody else is, because Apple has figured out that community is even more important than product.
How do you think that Apple created a community that was so different than any other? Like, why have they built a better community than others? Because I guess I shouldn't quantify it as better, but it appears to be better simply because they're $1 trillion company or whatever they are.
They recognized something early on, and that is that the real world is as important as the virtual world. They built, of course, a massive online virtual community, but early on, they were putting retail stores in every mall. But those retail stores were unlike any other retail store. They were a place that you could go in and share ideas. They were a place that you could go in and meet new friends. They were a place that you could interact with other people who had similar interests. And they were there to help the community, to help your business succeed. Microsoft now has stores in many malls, but not nearly as many as Apple. Everybody else was late to the game, but Apple recognized that community takes place in the real world. And ultimately, for any business, that's actually going to trump our online endeavors. And I'm a guy who's made a lot of money from the internet, from the online world. But we can't forget that it is only a reflection of the real world interactions that we have.
You also mentioned that culture is important. And I think Apple has built a culture within their industry. But this is another important part of business is the culture behind your business and figuring out. Can you speak a little bit on culture?
Yeah, there's two elements here. One, my favorite quote from Peter Drucker of all time is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. You get the culture right and everything else will follow. Obviously, culture within an organization might include everything from the geography of the location to the milieu of the workplace environment to the way clothing or uniforms are worn to open door policies versus closed door policies within an organization, transparency, all those sorts of things. But what really is important that most people miss is that in their marketing, they must align with the culture of those who they are trying to reach. So we not only need to be in the community with them, but we also need to align our marketing with their cultural perspective. So in social media, for example, I see people coming on to Facebook, my entrepreneur friends, and they drop these 10% off coupons or $100 if you act by Friday. That's not the culture of Facebook. That's the culture of Groupon. And so they're not culture aligned. Nobody's responding to them. People are dropping off of their friends list. The culture of Facebook is sharing the genuine you. The culture of Twitter is different than the culture of Facebook, obviously because of the brevity of a tweet, but the way that the platform is structured. And by engaging with Twitter users, we have to use a method that is different than we might with our Facebook users. And of course, the old axiom, dress for the job that you want, is really important. When I go to the real world, I don't go dressed like I am right now. Right now, I'm sitting in my house. I just made a quick run to the store. I actually have no plans. It's Friday. I'm taking the day off since I have a busy week next week. I'm dressed like a bum in my Bass Pro Shop cargo pants. But when I show up, whether it's a meetup group or really any other group, I dress as I do when I go to the office.
The good news, Richard, is that you have cargo pants on. Dan, huh?
I do have cargo pants on.
I can't stand up right now.
That's why this is an audio podcast, Dan.
Now, to our listeners,
got a face for radio and a pair of legs for radio too.
There you go.
Nice, Matt. Nice. To our listeners, listen to what Richard's saying about culture. And this is so important because we talk a lot about being genuine on this podcast. And about a week or so ago, I posted a video on Facebook about my why. And people want to see this, and people want to see what's behind your curtain. They want you to open up the kimono, so to speak. And I think it's easier to relate to people when you expose a little bit about yourself. And so much of us, I think, are afraid of exposure or afraid of getting found out, if you will. And you don't have to reveal everything, but when you open up your kimono a little bit, it opens up to a broader community that shows a little bit more into your culture, your own culture, or if you expose a little bit about your culture so people can understand. I think it's going to attract more people instead of repel.
Absolutely. People want to do business with people. They don't do business with machines, unless they're, of course, buying things from Kunaki. But the reality is, when I used to book conference rooms, I used to pick hotels that might not have been the most convenient for my guests or even the most beautiful hotel rooms, but because the salespeople I had built a relationship with, their genuineness, their concern about my business, their willingness to stop by and see how things were going, or to bring me lunch when they knew I was super busy, earned that repeat business. And when I got to know them well, when they would invite me when I was from out of town over to their house for dinner and things like that, long-term relationships were built. And when they moved to a new property, guess who also moved to a new property? My business.
So I want to bring that up real quick too, is your unique self and who you are, your why, your authenticity, all this type of stuff. Because I do think that builds community. And I do think that creates referable you, right? Which is something I talk a little bit more about as well in getting more word of mouth referrals. I was recently at an event, and this gentleman by the name of Brancard Lee spoke. And he spoke about how to be a better, in this case, it was how to be a better speaker, be an authentic self. And Brancard Lee can perform a number of different instruments, like hundreds of different instruments. But interestingly, one of his messages was, I didn't need to learn how to play the flute in every scale or read sheet music for the flute, because that's not why I wanted to play the flute. I simply needed to play one song with the flute. And so he learned one song with the flute, and that goes into his repertoire. And so he beatboxes on stage, and he adds in this recording device that he'll clap, and it will play the clap back, right? So he created a song on stage with all these different instruments, with his voice, whistling, and making beatbox noises and stuff. But he messed up. He messed up on stage, and he stopped when he realized it. And he looked at the audience, and he said, I forgot something. Would it be okay with you if I started that over again? And it gave everybody chills in the audience. Of course, they said yes. He did it again immediately, didn't forget what he ever forgot. I still can't figure out what he forgot. I don't know what he forgot, but he was clearly authentic, did this whole song now properly, apparently, and that's how he ended his talk and got a standing ovation. And if you think back to, I think it was 2015, 16, 17, something, Adele was at the Grammys. And she couldn't hear herself sing, and she started singing off key, and she stopped on live TV and started over. And people love that. They love to see your vulnerabilities and your mistakes and who you are. That's who you are.
Absolutely. That genuineness is really important. So I've often joked that I'm the worst dressed presenter who's ever existed. A few years ago, I had 2 different foot surgeries that were pretty complicated, including a fusion and a fake joint in my foot. And so now I wear tennis shoes with my suit. And I was at first self-conscious about that. But then I realized that I'm not a fashionista anyway. And so when I show up with my tennis shoes and my suit to the corporate function, everyone once in a while, somebody will give me a strange look, and I'll simply say, bad feet. Then, instantly they're my friend. They're my supporter. But being your authentic you, and I decided I was just going to be a whole lot happier. I was going to be a whole lot happier wearing comfortable shoes than I would being miserable for the benefit of others. Something else you said that was really important, though, Dan, I think about connecting with people and cultures. Back in the 90s, a salesperson told me that I should learn hello, please, and thank you in as many languages as possible. And I don't know why that stuck with me, but I did. And I can say hello and please and thank you in about 20 languages. Kind of like that musician Matt talked about. I can't play 100 different instruments, but no matter who they are, I can say hello, thank you, and please and you're welcome in their language. And that has opened up doors for me in sales to an extent that perhaps nothing else has. It shows respect. It shows an interest in them, and people truly have appreciated it over the years.
It gives you this insight into the culture. And to go back to the tennis shoes, we all have this concept, and the same story that Matt told as well. If we are aware of something, we think other people are going to be super aware of it too, and we'll sometimes become critical. And this is one of the many reasons I stopped being a magician, because I used to be a magician years ago before I got serious with myself. And I used to do a lot of magic shows. And I would buy all these magic tricks, and they'd become very obvious to me. And I'd think if they're becoming obvious to me, then they're becoming obvious to other people. So I'd only perform them for a little while until they became too obvious to me. But the thing is, that's our own perception. If we are usually the only one that knows the true, real secret behind our true identity and our true self. And I think this holds people back, because they think, oh, if I become aware of it, or if I mess up, or if this happens, then other people are going to notice it. Other people are going to be aware of it. And Richard, you talked about another C in business. You talked about community, culture, and what was the other one that you talked about?
Identity. Identity is about creating a bigger footprint. Unfortunately, most of us who are in business don't have the budget of Coca-Cola, So we can't buy ads at the Super Bowl and on every billboard and, every newspaper and every radio station and market ourselves in the same way. So the entrepreneur, a small, mid-sized business, has to expand their identity in a way that is different than simply buying the identity. And I have found the key is by sharing. I meet so many people who have a scarcity mentality. And with their scarcity mentalities, they don't want to share on their blog the actionable strategies that really work because they're afraid somebody might not hire them. Or they don't want to share resources, and they don't want to share because they're afraid somebody else might steal their idea and get their thunder. The reality is sharing is the easiest way to make more money. I've found that whatever I give away comes back to me tenfold. I have, over the years, probably given away more than most people in my industry. In fact, for many years, the CEU courses on my website were all available in entirety without purchasing them. You only actually paid when you needed the certificate. In other words, I was more than happy to give away the knowledge if it would help people. I have millions of hits on my YouTube channel because I love sharing strategies and ideas with people. And the reality is, by sharing, we can create an affirmative identity, but a bigger identity, a bigger footprint. And it goes back in a circle to then creating community.
And part of creating the community is, like you said, sharing the content. And if you ever see Richard's vendor table at a trade show or a show, it is literally lined with books that he's written. And I'm looking at him like, oh, did you outsource this? I go, no. He said, I've wrote every single one of these myself. I'm like, holy crap. And you gave me the formula that you use for writing the books. And it's super simple, but super effective.
Yeah, I've been doing this since 1994. I think I've written about 15 or 18 books, depending on how you want to count it. And here's the thing: when you buy my book, you're actually paying me to organize the information for you, because most of what is in my books I actually blog and post and share everywhere else. Yeah. But now people want to know what my formula is.
I think the funny part is though. That Dan thought the third thing was a C and it starts with identity.
I thought you said the 3 C. I thought you said the 3 C's of business. I'm trying to. I'm like
community, culture, and identity.
Yeah, but
in fact, I'll do a shameless plug. At the bottom of my website at viralleadership.com, you can actually get my ebook called Community, Culture, and Identity that talks about the strategies we can all use to make sure that we target these 3 areas of success. It's right there on the website.
And for SPRH listeners, our square peg round holers, as we like to call them, if you go there, it's going to say community, culture, and identity.
Yes.
I was thinking community, culture, and couture. That shows where my mind goes.
Yeah, but I don't speak French. Only Russian and Chinese.
Well, you can say hello and goodbye and thank you in French.
I do.
Well, Richard, it has been a great pleasure speaking with you today. So tell all our square peg round holders again how they can get in touch with you.
So at viralleadership.com, which is my website, you can also get there by typing in nongard.com, but nobody knows how to spell my name. So I had to buy viralleadership.com so that it could redirect over there. But there's a link to my podcast, Leadership That Makes You Money. There's a link to my newest book titled Viral Leadership. Seize the Power of Now to Create Lasting Transformation in Business. And that's actually available through Audibles as an audio book now. But at the bottom of viralleadership.com is a place for you to tell me where to email my ebook, Community, Culture, and Identity. And those are, again, strategies that came from my experience in building my own businesses. Over the years, I've had tremendous success, but I've had success sometimes by doing things the hard way or the long way. And those resources that I've written about come from, like Dan said, not from outsourcers, but from my own experience, so that you can actually replicate my success with hopefully a little bit less of the pain or some of the money that I've spent over the years.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being on today, sharing with our small business owners, our square peg round holders.
It's been absolutely fantastic talking to everybody. So thanks for having me.
Make sure you check out the after the show videos every now and then on Facebook, listeners, and we'll be right back with our Yahoo Moments.
And that's a wrap, fellas.
Awesome.
Hey, Matt, what's your Yahoo Moment?
Yeah, my Yahoo Moment today with Richard is Culture Eats Strategy for Business. So here's the
me
thing
hungry.
with that. Huh?
Makes me hungry.
Yeah, it makes me hungry too. Always thinking about that Big Mac pizza. But here's the thing. Culture eats strategy for business. Here's what I learned from that. Nothing. But I love the saying, man. It's absolutely amazing. I love it. Culture eats. And the way he said it, culture eats, like Chris Drucker said, culture eats strategy for business.
He does.
Like, shouldn't that be on one of those motivational posters?
Oh, I thought you were going to say on a 1-800 number or an 888 number.
No. Okay, Dan. What was your Yahoo moment of the day?
Mine was what I thought was the CCC, the 3 C's of business, which turned out not to be the 3 C's of business. It was CCI.
Yeah.
Community, culture, identity. And, community, I really go back, Matt. One of my values is community. And it took me a long time to realize that I could put community into my business. And now I'm building my own community and have a bunch of people in it. And it's a really great thing to build that community that runs your business when you might not be able to. So
absolutely,
that's my Yahoo moment. And to our listeners, make sure you check out the sales summit that we have, 6 conversations with sales pros, and sprhpodcast.com. Go check out our other stuff while you're there too.
You just listened to the SPRH podcast with Matt Ward and Dan Candell, where you learn from the pros how to take massive action. Remember, have yourself an action-oriented day.